Krishna 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 Hare
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 Krishna Krishna Hare
Krishna 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 Hare
Krishna 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 Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatyam Abhyasam Bhakto Jayam Udiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which by very means of conquest refers also respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author, by regular attendance in the classes of the Bhagavad, and rendering pure devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed to practically nil. And thus, loving service unto the glorious Lord who is praised with transcendental hymns becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 13. Dhritarashtra quits home, and it's the second to last text. 59. Okay. Please repeat. Vidura tu tat ascharya Viduras tu tat ascharya Nishamya Kurunandana Nishamya Kurunandana Harsha Soka Yutaha Tasmat Harsha Soka Yutas Tasmat Ganta Kirta Nisevakaha Ganta Kirti Nisevakaha Viduras tu Tadascharya Nisamya Kurunandana Asha Soka Yutas Tasma Ganta Tirtani Sevaka Tutarashchayam Nisamya Kurunandana Vasha Soka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtani Sevaka Vidurastu Tarashchayam Nisamya Kurunandana Asha Soka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtani Sevaka
Vidurastu Tarashchayam Nishamya Kurunandana Harsha Soka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtha Nishevaka
Vidurastu Tarashchayam Nisamya Kurunandana Harsha Soka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtha Nisevaka
Vidurastu Tarashchayam Nishamya Kurunandana Harsha Soka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtha Nishevaka
Vidurastu Tadashcharyam Nishamya Kurunandana Harsha Shoka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtha Nishevakaha
Vidurastu Tadashcharyam Nishamya Kurunandana Shashoka Yutastasmat Tatirtha Nisevaka
Vidurastu Tat Ashcharyam Nisamya Kurunandana Harsha Shoka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtha Nishevakaha
Any ladies?
Vidurastu Tadashcharyam Nisamya Kurunandana Harsha Soka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtha Nisevaka
Nishamya Kurunandana
Harsha Soka Yutastasmat
Harsha Soka Yutastasmat Ganta Tirtha Nishevaka
Anyone else? Viduraha Vidura also to but that incident Ascharya wonderful Nisamya seeing Kurunandana O son of the Kuru dynasty Harsha delight Soka grief Yutaha affected by Tasmat from that place Ganta will go away Tirtha, place of pilgrimage.
Place of pilgrimage.
Nisevakaha, for being enlivened. Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage. Please repeat. Vidura, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place
of
sacred pilgrimage. Srila Prabhupada's divine purport. Vidura was astonished to see the marvelous departure of his brother Dhritarashtra as a liberated yogi. For in his past life, he was much attached to materialism. Of course, it was only due to Vidura that his brother attained the desirable goal of life. Vidura was therefore glad to learn about it, but he was sorry that he could not make his brother turn into a pure devotee. This was not done by Vidura because of Dhritarashtra's being inimical to the Pandavas, who were all devotees of the Lord. An offense at the feet of a Vaishnava is more dangerous than an offense at the feet of the Lord. Vidura was certainly very liberal to bestow mercy upon his brother Dhritarashtra, whose past life was very materialistic. But ultimately, the result of such mercy certainly depended on the will of the Supreme Lord in the present life. Therefore, Dhritarashtra attained liberation only. And after many such liberated states of life, one can attain to the stage of devotional service. Vidura was certainly very mortified by the death of his brother and sister-in-law, and the only remedy to mitigate such lamentation was to go out to pilgrimage. Thus, Maharaj Yudhisthira had no chance to call back Vidura, his surviving uncle. Thus ends the purport to the Bhaktivedanta purports of the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 59th verse of the 13th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Dhritarashtra quits home. Srila Prabhupada ki. So, offer my obeisances to the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, who has so kindly come to deliver us fallen people, especially here in the Western countries. And by his grace, he has opened our eyes, which have been, practically speaking, glued shut by the darkness of ignorance, being full of all sorts of impersonal concepts and voidist type of philosophy. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So, before beginning, I'll distribute a few things to help keep people on their toes. This is a new book, the newest book I got in, and it's about bhakti, or devotional service, and it's entitled Wise Love by one older devotee named Pranada, and her last name is, I think it's pronounced Kamoyas or Kamtoas. Anyway, you can look at the name and see how to pronounce it. And it's especially written for new people to understand bhakti or devotional service. So there's no real pictures. That there is a picture of her, and you can look at the front and the back, and then just somebody can stick it on the shelf. I just put them up on the very top of the shelf where the children's Krishna book is. That's one thing, and the other things I think I'll give away after class, except for this Burfi. Whoever wants to distribute the Burfi can break off a little piece and give everybody a piece. This is from the Mangalarti. But I do have some other items for those who can manage to still be here, but I don't have enough for everyone. So it's going to depend on how eager a person is for this particular item. Okay, so I was meditating on this a little bit, and I'm so fortunate because the verse is about Vidura. And Vidura, of course, is a great soul, a Mahatma. He's an expansion or an incarnation of Yamaraj, whom is a Mahajan, or one of the most knowledgeable people in the universe. One of the 12, there's 12 of them specifically stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, who are actually the knowers of religious principles. Religious principles can be sometimes a little bit difficult to figure out. What is the particular principle, for this time, place, and circumstances. And, so-and-so's got his opinion and so-and-so's got their opinion. Every person, practically speaking, has their opinion. But the Mahajans, they are actually people that we can reference and be sure to not make a mistake if we follow. They, understand the principles of religion perfectly. And Vidura is an incarnation of Yamaraj, who is one of those people. And not exactly by coincidence, but by the arrangement of providence, so is his nephew, Yudhisthira Maharaj, is also an incarnation of Yamaraj. Vidura, or Yamaraj, is appearing as Vidura due to a curse. So, all these things are like curses and benedictions are manipulated by providence or the Lord to entertain his pastimes. And so Yamaraj was cursed by one rishi for what the rishi felt was a mistake in the execution of administering justice. And the rishi was annoyed enough that he cursed him. It was probably under the influence of providence, because providence had to make some arrangement for Yamaraj to appear as the great personality. Vidura couldn't be an ordinary personality. It had to be very great personality. But he would be appearing in a difficult situation. So it required a curse, because the great Yamaraj was going to become a Sudra on earth. The Sudra is in one sense, the least important of the important people in human society. The least important in the Vedic system of Varnashram, which governs human beings. So Vidura would have to take his birth as a Sudra, not a Brahmin or a Kshatriya or even a wealthy Vaishya, but as a Sudra who renders service to the other caste and must be loyal to them. So, Vidura took his birth as the son of a Sudrani, or a maidservant, in the court of the Kauravas. But his father is none other than the great sage Vyasadeva, who is actually writing all this, who's the author of this Srimad Bhagavatam. So his father is Vyasadeva and his mother was a Sudrani. And therefore he could never become a prince or a king. But he wasn't an ordinary person. And that was understandable by all of the powerful leaders of the Kuru dynasty and ever great personalities on earth. He was one of the wisest men of his time. He would be like, an extremely wise advisor to the president. An extremely, one whose conclusions on a topic you could rest assured was perfect. He knew Vedic knowledge, scripture, backwards and forward, and he knew it specifically on how to manage a government, how to run a government, how to administer justice perfectly. These things were all perfectly understood by Vidura. And nonetheless, his nephew also understood all those things. His nephew was not the greatest fighter. He was a Kshatriya, and he was a powerful warrior. He wasn't the best of the warriors, but he was the best of the kings, because kings don't only fight, they had to administer justice. They had to administrate a kingdom. And oftentimes, their commander-in-chief may be more powerful than them. But the commander-in-chief serves them because the commander-in-chief cannot do what they do. And it's very difficult to run a kingdom just based on power. People become very aggravated due to administrative mistakes and imperfect administering of justice. So often the king is surrounded by extremely powerful warriors. May even be better fighters than him. So Yudhisthira was somewhat like that. And Duryodhana was able to take advantage of that. Because Duryodhana had to undermine him. Because Duryodhana and his father wanted the kingdom. When Pandu left for the forest to enjoy some vacation time, he appointed Dhritarashtra as temporary king. His brother, naturally wanted to be king. He was born a king. But he couldn't be the king because of, the defect of being blind. It just, was against scriptural injunctions because, the king wouldn't be able to read faces and he would be dependent upon his ministers. And maybe the ministers would be prejudiced in some way. And the king wouldn't be able to tell. Because, body language is more important than simply hearing. And the king wouldn't be able to see any of that. So he couldn't be the king. But his brother gave him an opportunity to be temporarily the king while he was away. Anything important, they would simply call Pandu back. So, he got to run the kingdom on a daily basis. Unfortunately, Pandu never came back. And Dhritarashtra became, the king because there was no one else. However, Pandu's eldest son was the firstborn between the children of Dhritarashtra and Pandu. Only those children could be king. Vidura's children could not be king because his mother was a Sudrani. And the bloodlines worked perfectly in these other yugas. People who were supposed to be born in certain families were born in certain families. It just worked perfectly like that. In Kali Yuga, it doesn't work like that. You may have a less intelligent person born in the family of Pandits. And in the family of some ordinary people, you have a great Pandit born. This Kali Yuga is all mixed up. But in previous ages, people were born in a particular caste that they were meant to serve in. It was just a natural thing. So therefore, Kshatriyas would not fight with people who were not born of royal blood, because it was beneath them to fight with Sudras and Vaishyas. It's like, arguing with a lady. You don't argue with ladies. You don't fight with ladies. People don't fight with ladies. I mean, it's like, it's a bad character. I mean, what are you doing fighting with a lady? You don't fight with ladies. So Kshatriyas don't fight with Sudras and Vaishyas. They only fight with other Kshatriyas of royal blood. They don't fight with Brahmins. So, Vidura's children could not become the king. And Yudhisthira was born first amongst the children of Dhritarashtra and Pandu. And therefore he was supposed to become king. Everyone knew that Yudhisthira would become the king. Duryodhana had to dismiss him. And one of the ways he dismissed him was by his saintliness. He's really not a king. He's obviously too good to be a king. Kings have to do so many despicable things. And Yudhisthira is too good for that sort of life. He's a saint by nature. He's a Brahmin. He grew up in the forest. Pandu had him in the forest with rishis. Obviously it had some influence. And consequently, Yudhisthira was born. He was a saintly person. He should live amongst the Brahmins and teach scripture. And, minister to us kings, Kshatriyas, who, have the type of character it takes to deal with demoniac forces and put them in their place. So constantly undermining Yudhisthira, and also dealing with the other Pandavas. They were not worried about Sahadeva and Nakula. They were younger. They weren't going to be the king. You'd have so many people would have to die before they would become king. And Arjuna was also younger than Duryodhana, and even Duryodhana's second brother. And Bhima, he was gluttonous, passionate. How could he rule a kingdom? So he was constantly, it wasn't just by acts of violence that he attempted to get rid of him. But it was a constant undermining of Yudhisthira's ability to rule. Anyhow, that was accepted, and it was given credence by Dhritarashtra, who was the caretakers of the Pandavas as well as his own children. But due to deep-seated prejudice to be the king himself, or at least his firstborn, the king, he was able to be influenced by Duryodhana's constant politics, to cut down Yudhisthira and to become king himself. So Dhritarashtra developed a natural enmity and enviousness toward the Pandavas, which in the long run didn't serve him very well. To the extent that his great brother could not make him a pure devotee. What he did, the next best thing, he did the impossible, practically speaking. Dhritarashtra was a materialistic person who wanted to be king. He wanted, to the extent that he probably, without Vidura, was praying to become the king in his next life. He probably was paying Brahmins for all sorts of sacrifices, with hoping for the benediction that in his next life he would be born with his eyes and would be the rightful king. In other words, he was a commie. that meant he was interested in the affairs of karma. He wanted to be king. They're not kings in Vaikuntha. There's only one king, and everybody's his devotee. And the same in Krishna Loka. There's no administrative government in the spiritual world. It doesn't exist. There's no crime. There's no such thing as Varnashram Dharma. There's a Daiva Varnashram where they take and play certain roles. But there's no administration of justice. This is what Kshatriyas do. There's no fighting amongst warriors. You don't see the Vaikuntha people, running an army to come down and slay all the Yamadutas or bad guys. They do protect devotees, but they're absorbed in Vishnu Loka. And Krishna Loka, it has some different affairs going on. There's some, rumors of a Kamsa, and there's some threat of a Kaliya serpent, but Krishna rides around on him like a seahorse, and they have fun. And Krishna goes off in the afternoon like he's going to Mathura, and the gopis are feeling pains of separation. They don't know if he's going to come back, but the next morning he's there. So, Vidura, has his work cut out for him. He had a very difficult time throughout his career because after Pandu left, things became difficult. He had to constantly minister to his brother, the rightful situation of Yudhisthira. And it was difficult because Dhritarashtra, he listened to him, and Bhishma was espousing the same understanding, and even Dronacharya, but Dhritarashtra leaned toward his son. And in the end, Vidura was practically sped up on, to the extent he became so frustrated with the affairs of the kingdom and could see the complete demise of his dynasty before his eyes, that he renounced it all and left. He simply went on pilgrimage. And then, after the whole affair, Dhritarashtra is still there, and he finds it within his heart that I have to do something to deliver my older brother. Because after all, it was his older brother, and it was a brother that he took care of all of his life. He was his the constant counselor, the person he turned to, as a kid and a teenager, and is a prince who could not be king, and then is the temporary king, and then is the king himself. The only person who would sit there and tell him, what he should do, despite his son saying something else. So Vidura had an attachment for helping this person, and so now how was he going to save him? It's going to be very difficult to make him into a pure devotee because of the deep-grained animosity that existed ultimately between him and Pandu's sons, his brother's sons, that he didn't treat right. So Vidura did the next best thing, and he turned him into a yogi. It's amazing that, in those day and age, someone so invalid, so old, blonde, practically on the verge of death, could become a yogi. These are things that are not possible in the world today. People cannot perform this type of yoga even in good health. I mean, who do you see in this day and age amongst all these yogis? And it's very popular. And there's millions of people practicing yoga, millions. Just in America, probably. Millions and millions of people throughout the world. How many times do you read in the paper that so-and-so went to some place and practiced yoga and left, burning their body in the fire of yoga practice? Well, no one. I mean, they have some Buddhist people pour gasoline on themselves to make a point and light themselves on fire. But no one has the capability of raising the light theirs to the extent that they can leave their body in flames. It's just not possible. What to speak of a person in ill health, old, invalid, and blind. But he became such a powerful yogi. He became so that the world for him simply was an illusion. He didn't care a fig anymore about the Kuru dynasty, about Hastinapur, about his family life, about his dead children and his nephews. For him, he became actually absorbed in Brahman. And the temporary body was no longer important. It was just a vehicle to carry his soul to the next destination. And, he became Brahman realized. And the Prabhupada makes the point that from that state, he could then attain to devotional service. Now, how many births it would take? Krishna says in the Gita that of those who have achieved perfection, Holy One knows me in truth. But from that Brahman state, it is possible to engage in pure devotional service. Because one, won't make the mistake of offending anyone. Everyone is Brahman. They only see the soul. They don't see the modes of material nature. Or they don't give it very much importance. They have many yogis like this. For example, the great Avadutta incarnation of God, Rishabhadev. When he renounced everything, he didn't give a fig about anything, to the extent that he didn't wear clothes. But when he would pass through for 80 miles around, it smelled like roses. He was so liberated and perfect. And his son, who took charge of the kingdom, the emperor of the earth, so powerful, he wasn't just the emperor of a kingdom in India, one tract of land, but he was the king of the whole earth. All the different continents, he was the emperor of it. And the planet became named after him. Bharata is, in reference to the planet Earth, is not named after Lord Ram's second brother and many other famous bards in the history of the world. It's named after the first son of Rishabhadev. He was such a powerful king, administrator. But when he renounced the world, he renounced everything. And Srila Prabhupada spoke about him when he came to New Talavana, how he made the mistake of again becoming attached to, helping some poor soul. And that poor soul just happened to be, a poor deer whose mother was forced to abandon it. And he became attached to it as a pet. And, left this world by, untimely due to an accident. But at the time when he was trying to find a pet for its welfare. And, consequently he died with the pet on his mind and became a deer. So the laws of nature, they don't discriminate. Prabhupada would give the example of putting one's hand in fire and one gets burned. Valari, we were talking yesterday, and he was told by the doctors not to stand or would have an ill result. He thought he could stand because he was helping somebody. But it was like putting your hand in fire. It was a mistake. And he got the consequences that the doctors told him he would get. So, here's the great Bharata, the most powerful king on earth. To this day, people who follow Vedic culture still call the earth Bharata Varsh. This is millions of years before, and they still call it by him. And then he becomes a powerful renunciate. But because he died remembering something other than the absolute truth, he took birth as a deer. The laws of nature, they don't discriminate. Put your hand in fire, you get burned. Die thinking of a woman, you become a woman. So, Vidura turned Dhritarashtra into somebody that died thinking of Brahman. The all-pervasive Brahman. It's none different from Krishna. It's Krishna's effulgence. Every planet is situated within the Brahman, whether it's material or spiritual. And, Dhritarashtra was able to attain to the state that he was completely Brahman realized. Sukadeva Goswami was also Brahman realized within the womb of his mother and didn't want to come out because the world of Maya was too despicable. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. He was fixed in the joy of Brahmananda, the happiness of Brahman realization. Of course, when he got the opportunity to hear about Krishna consciousness, he came out of the womb and began to recite. He had heard, and now he was fixed in the pleasure of the devotional service of Shravana, chanting about devotional service. Dhritarashtra hadn't come to that state. Hopefully, he will. The person who, played that role, hopefully he's getting to that point. So Vidura was able to do that. It's amazing that he was able to, bring him to that point and send him off and then actually see him attain perfection. And so it's said that, he felt some grief, he's finally gone, but he's happy because, he's not going to hell. He's not coming back to again be a king and have to undergo all the difficulties that kings have to undergo. But he's actually attained to Brahman, and from there, maybe he'll go on to pure devotional service. And so what does Vidura do? He just goes back on pilgrimage. After all, when you get into problems, what can you do? You can renounce it all if it's a suitable time. And just go to Mayapur, go to Vrindavan, go to some place of pilgrimage, go to another temple. If you can't do that, simply come before Shishi Radharadhakanta, Shishi Gurnitai, chant Hare Krishna, bow down. Sometimes we don't get to bow down enough. And sometimes in India, you see sadhus who bow down all the way around Govardhan Hill. Now it takes 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours to walk around Govardhan Hill. Did you ever figure out how long it takes to bow down all the way around Govardhan Hill? Some of them bow down all the way around Raj Bhumi, which is about an 80-mile circumference. So they spend years. You bow down and you put the stone where your hand is. You got a stone in your hand and you put your hand there. And then you stand up and you put your feet there next time and you bow down again. So Mamana, think of Krishna. Maybe, we get so frustrated with this material existence that we simply renounce it all and just think of Krishna from now on. Mamana Bhavamad Bhakto, we try to become his devotee. That's not easy to become Krishna's devotee. Very difficult thing to do to become a pure devotee. But Majjhimam, we can worship Krishna. At least in our own house we can worship Krishna. Maybe we don't have some qualification to worship in the temple. We got, this thing that, makes us unqualified or that thing. But, at home we can offer incense and flower and fan and some lamp, We can offer some bhoga to Krishna. So we can worship Krishna, but here's the easy one, Namaskuru. We can simply come and bow down before Krishna. I have a friend, his name is Bharata. One time Bharata came here and he bowed down all the way around the temple. He still had a lot of difficulties in his material life. It didn't work out for him as far as his material life goes. I haven't seen him in a number of years now, but he at one time was a great helper. He became frustrated due to what he felt was a lack of appreciation. So, anyhow, hopefully he went on with his Krishna consciousness. So anyway, to bring everything to a conclusion, it's getting late here. Sorry for not being able to weave this all together. But point is that Vidura was fixed in Krishna consciousness. We know that in the future he's going to become a major part of the Srimad Bhagavatam, taking up the whole third canto in discussions with Maitreya Rishi. That he'll bump into Uddhava before Uddhava leaves the planet. He'll learn about Krishna's leaving, and then he'll spend, God knows how long that took for him to sit down and be involved in inquiring from Maitreya Rishi, which makes up the third canto of our Srimad Bhagavatam, before he goes back home to Godhead. So, Shriman Vidura Maharaj Ki Jai. So I have some things that are for the devotees. Who needs an alarm clock that does not have a battery in it? I know it's an old piece of technology, but it doesn't need